Is your child struggling with reading, writing, or spelling?
Do you suspect they might have dyslexia?
At Hill Country Dyslexia Services, our team of experienced educational diagnosticians are here to help.
We offer a thorough evaluation process at HCDS to help you identify your child's needs.
Call us today at 512-648-2291 to schedule an appointment and take the first step towards supporting your child's learning journey. Hi, this is Amy
And Melissa. We are a couple of retired Texas teachers who are CALTS, Certified Academic Language Therapists. We started our own businesses, and now we have a podcast called
The Dyslexia Duo. So join us for our informative podcast, where we'll delve into dyslexia, covering the topics that affect parents, therapists, teachers, practitioners, and anyone who wants to learn more. We'll guide you through everything you need to know, from the first signs to the intricacies of dyslexia curriculum placement and beyond.
This season, we will cover the referral process, what to expect when your child or student is dyslexic, the generational impacts of dyslexia, and how to support those affected.
Come join us. Thank you for rejoining us while we continue our conversation with Nancy Hannagan. So, kind of going along with what we're talking about, on this podcast, people have heard us talk about dyslexia and ADHD, and the possible comorbidity is as high, maybe higher than 40%. Why do you think there's such a high comorbidity between dyslexia and ADHD? And how do things like short-term memory and long-term memory, we talked a little bit about that already, working memory and executive functioning, how are these all impacted by the ADHD and the dyslexia? It's almost like a really super complicated Venn diagram in my head, and how one impacts the other.
I think the more accuracy goes back to Dr. Pickering. She has a chart, and it's processing disabilities, and it is ADD, ADHD, dyscalculia, if I said that one right, aphasia, autism, dyslexia, dysgraphia. They're all processing disabilities. And so I do think as we learn more about research, it's hard to sometimes, like you said, Venn diagram, it's hard to pull it apart and isolate them, right? Yeah. We know when we were able to evaluate students, I love it when you have a student reading a book and it says, the cow jumped over the moon. And you ask them, what animal jumped over the moon? And if they look at you and they read the cow jumped over the moon, they say there was an animal in there. You're like, oh, attention.
Yeah.
But then you have a student who says the moose jumped over the moon.
Yeah.
And you ask, what animal jumped over the moon? They're like, a cow. And you're like, how did you say
get that?
Cow?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's my dyslexia kid. They're reading from visual and intelligence. And my ADHD kid is reading from just rote memory, and they're not paying attention to what they're actually doing. And I enjoy working with students and putting it always back on them. And I will tell my students, I'm like, I only work as hard as you do, and you're the one that's in here. I'm just the support. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to watch them. Another strand I go through is what is ability and what is habit. Mm-hmm. And when I navigate that with my students, that's a pretty cool place to be too, because I'm like, you know what, I don't know. I don't know if you have a habit of reading like this or if it's your ability. So let's practice something. And we'll kind of pull something down to say, oh, Mrs. D, I can do that. I guess I just don't. And here's an example. When it's fluency, the students who swallow, or the students who don't know to stop at a period, it's just habits that they have formed. And so our job is to bring awareness to it, right, and then a skill, and then they have a strategy. And so ADHD and dyslexia, you have to slow down or be aware of the discerning between the two, so that you know where to give them that support and ownership.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think it's all because it's processing. And think about the kids who, if I am not able in that working memory to hold many thoughts, because I'm having to discern every single stimulation constantly, right, they're holding on to the birds outside the window and not paying attention to the teacher say, get out your piece of paper, number to 10. Or is it my student who's saying all of this language is overwhelming and I can't keep it straight because of language? And so I'm daydreaming and looking out the window, and that's what's going on. And I really do try to put it back to my students and ask them what's going on. And this is even second graders. I have asked them, where do you think you went? Or what do you think's going on? And we solve it together. I don't feel like I have to have the answers for any student I have. I feel like they get to explore themselves and take that ownership for what they want to learn. And then they start developing skills.
Wow.
But so, yeah, executive function. I think if you've been around enough students, you're going to start seeing it's both or one or the other. I'll ask you guys back. Don't you feel like you're getting to where you can discern that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. There's been so many students. I mean, and everybody has heard me say this before. What I've done that works with one student is not necessarily going, because our kids are shades of gray. You know, they're all very different. They're on that dyslexia spectrum. And I can't rest on what worked with one child's going to work with another child, even in the areas of, you know, working memory and executive functioning. I have to dig. I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly learning on how to support my kids, my students.
Well, then add another layer, add technology.
Yeah.
I mean, you have another layer. So Reader Come Home, and there's another book I have to think of, talking about the rewiring of the brain with technology. And so skills, think about our attention span. When they first TikTok came out, the algorithm, and how quickly we're going through with our attention span. And so, you know, that's playing a role in what our students, their engagement and how they're holding information and developing.
Yeah.
So for some extent, you know, I had a student, I asked him to spell banana, and he looked up to my ceiling and said,
do the Gwen Stefani song, B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
I wish. No, he said, Alexa, spell banana. And I thought, yep. You know, so again, attention span, we have to evolve also with the way our learners are coming to us, and how to engage them.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned the TikTok thing. And I do love the book Reader Come Home. I thought that was significant. And teachers are always surprised when I bring that book up. And I'm like, things are going online. Textbooks are online. And that's not necessarily the best thing for all of our students. But we have to teach them how to use these materials online, because it's not like paper books. But I think it's interesting that you bring up the TikTok generation, because really, I've noticed my attention span, and I'm a good reader. You know, I like to write. I'm a good reader. But my attention span, because I do watch the reels and the TikToks, is very short, you know, as I get older. And I totally attribute it to social media and all of that.
But not just that. Think about this. If that working memory only has so much space, we have more available information. And so I have to make a decision on if I'm going to have a little bit of information on a lot of things, or if I'm going to dive deep into something. So again, I don't have the research to back what I'm observing in the classroom right now, but it does appear that many of the students are lacking the ability to have greater stamina in their attention. So
I think some of that falls within the effort that it takes as well for them to go through a day at school, go through a day at therapy practice. I mean, I just think that when you have that disability, like we've talked about this whole time that we've been together, and you know that everything in our world revolves around language. Everything that is in a classroom, there's reading all around you.
Yeah.
That puts a lot of added emotional stress on somebody. And I do believe that, of course, I don't have the research to back that either, but I do believe that is a contributing factor to some of their presentation of having inattention, because it, like you were saying earlier, Nancy, their buckets just get filled up. So they just have to check out, and they just have to be in another place, or they have to do something else, do something active to get out some of that filled bucket, so that they can come back to the classroom and do what they know is expected of them, and they want to do what they need to do.
Well, and you brought up an interesting point. When I first got to Region 10, they put me next door to the librarian, which I thought was kind of funny. And so I went to her office and she had a whole wall of books. And of course, now I enjoy books now that I've been identified and understand the why that I struggled to read. So I told her, I was like, oh, I just never really liked the library. And she looked at me like I wasn't very nice to say. She said, that was kind of offensive. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not, no. I'm so sorry. I have dyslexia. So the library was just not a place I enjoyed. And she said, okay, but you know how hard librarians work for kids to enjoy the library. And I said, well, the dentist puts in aquatic tanks and puts on nice music. It does not make a root canal any more pleasurable.
Does not, no.
This is still a very hard place for me. And so we created a library session. And she said, Nancy, my nickname now for her was Onion. She said, I cry every time I'm with Nancy because I had no idea I had students coming in there that were struggling.
Yeah.
Because she said, if you're bilingual, you can kind of tell if you can support them. If they have a physical disability, you can support them. I didn't know there were students that were silently struggling inside of that library. And so we did a poll. So Region 10 had 110 or 150 districts, I think. And we did a poll on ask your students with dyslexia how they feel about the library. I kind of felt like I was isolated, I guess, because it's still my little girl emotions, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember being embarrassed in the library because I'm very competitive and I was a great athlete. So I hated that my book level wasn't like my peers, and I wasn't reading pictures yet. So we took a poll and we had an overwhelming response and of the kids saying, I wish the library had more graphic novels. I wish there was a way to find the books. Because think about it. My disability, a 2, an S, and a 5 on a day that I'm stressed out, I can't read them quickly. It's not that I can't read them. I can't read them quickly.
Yeah.
And the librarians like go to aisle, the Dewey Decimal System. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So I just would pick random books.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things the students said is, I wish there was an easier way to get the books. So we did create on my high school campus a laminated pass. And we had a shutdown day at the library with all my dyslexic kids. And the librarian got to know they had the disability because they're not a teacher of record.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Mm.
So we got permission from the parents that they met with the librarian, and if they had a laminated card, only a few of my kids had this. But the kids that had a laminated card, the librarian would actually pull their books and try to find the same content on a different reading level or get an audiobook for them.
Nice.
And that change, and again, that's living with my disability. If we just say, oh, go to intervention and learn how to read. Yeah. Yes, but that's not everything.
Right.
Learning how to go to a library in middle school and high school and not look at your teacher like, I need help finding a book in the library. You're not going to say that at 12.
Absolutely. And you take it one step further. And if you think about you being a therapist, you being an educator, and you know what your child needs to read, you have to kind of pick up several books and try to figure out, okay, these words, yes, this follows the pattern that they've learned so far. Yes, they can read this. Who's going to do that? They wouldn't know. They see what their friends are reading and they want to read what their friends are reading.
Right.
And the first thing I do, even now, I finally have a library. I'm so proud that I have a library. And the first thing I do is to see the size of the font. Mm-hmm. And then what I do, so this is a good thing for my high school students. Again, this is in that time session. As soon as my students get a book, this is the first thing we do. So when my student gets a book, they had to get the giver. And of course, she was like, Mrs. D, we can't read it. And I'm like, what am I going to say? She's like, we're going to break it into parts. I'm like, all right. So the first thing we do for your audience is I tab half the book, then fourths. And then if they're really overwhelmed, then we go further. Then we look at the chapters, and the absolute have to for my students with dyslexia. Many readers are confused in the first chapter, right? We don't know the setting. We don't know who the characters are. We don't know. But dyslexic kids, because they know they're not, they've convinced themselves it's harder. Everything's harder for them. Mm-hmm. I tell them chapter 1's your hardest chapter. Chapter 1, we need to map it out. And we do a graphic mapping of chapter 1 for every one of my students. And
that is because wonderful.
We don't know who they are yet. And that makes them go, oh, because Mrs. D. And if I can't get them through chapter 1, I can't get them through the book. So we map it out, or I'll say, for sure, Mrs. D's reading chapter 1, and let's do a map. For some of my high school students, with permission, again, this is like 2 or 3. These are the ones with the most deficit or least amount of home support. We would get permission to read, to watch the movie. Mm. Or or we'd get permission to read the cliff notes. So they were still reading.
Yeah.
So these were the ways that I was like, energy and time.
Yeah.
And what is the teacher wanting to expect out of them? So a librarian knowing this about my students or going through a dyslexia simulation, I do recommend that your librarians go through that. And that way they're like, I had no idea how difficult this was. These are the women who love books, right? Or a gentleman, the librarians can't imagine not wanting to read every book in the library. So I do give the analogy, if someone's not athletic, what room in the building do they dislike?
Yeah.
The gym. Right? They dread it. So you're adding on to what you're saying, Melissa Dean, on how to support these students. I do think a training for the campuses that dyslexia is not just reading isolation.
Right.
They still need support going through middle school, high school. I still, to this day, as an adult with dyslexia, use my strategies. And when I'm with other adults, it feels so good when they're like, oh my gosh, I totally reversed that phone number. I'm like, right? It doesn't go away. Even with great support, I still have it. I read with my finger. I think it feels really good when students are like, you do? And I'm like, I have to read with my finger or a piece of paper. Otherwise, my brain is taking in all of the words and it's too many for me. And I didn't know that till it was dyslexia. I didn't know until I had that education. So it's been very helpful.
I think it's interesting that because there's so much of what you're saying in this particular interview that we've heard experts and people who may not necessarily be experts, just people living with dyslexia, verbalize the same thing. When we had my friend, we had multi-generational dyslexics on one of our early episodes, and it's my best friend growing up. And so her mom has dyslexia, she has dyslexia. A couple of her kids have dyslexia, and a few of her grandkids have dyslexia, right? And so Carolyn had even said, and we're in our 50s, right? And she had said that she has to enter in codes and that she kept miscoding things and it was getting sent back to her. And she told the people doing codes, please don't put these letters or these numbers together, because when I'm looking at too many things at once, I'm going to transcribe it every single time. And it's not like she can't read or she won't read. It's just so much information, just like you were saying with the Dewey Decimal System in the library. It's too hard to figure out some of that stuff sometime when they're similar looking and you've been doing it for so long.
Just hearing you describe that story, I want to emphasize again, using the word energy instead of hard. And it's because words direct you. And I have students who say, Miss D, it's so hard. I'm like, I think what you're saying is that's going to take this much energy.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm reframing it is because I don't want them to think they can't do it.
Right.
And your friend is right. It's funny. I have all my passwords written down, and my husband and my family are all like, you cannot have those written down. Yeah. What's hard for me is entering in information. And it's embarrassing, right? Like none of us would want to admit it, but it is transferring of those letters is still part of my disability. And it's difficult for me. So yes, passwords are awful. And email, writing down people's email when they ask me to do that. And I'm like, God, that just makes you, but now the difference is now I say, I'm going to need you to text that to me so I can copy paste it.
Yeah.
Or I've got my strategies without feeling negative about myself. This is what I need to do. No different than if someone has glasses or readers. Right. Give me a second. I need to grab my readers. Different way for me to take in information around me. Mine just happens to be symbol recognition.
Right. Exactly.
So Nancy, we had touched quite a bit here and there about high school students. And I know that when we worked together, you were a dyslexia specialist in high school, kind of like we talked about. Since we've talked here and there about dyslexia, supporting students with dyslexia in the high school level or the middle school level, I did want to know, is there anything else that you would like to add? Are there any other differences of instruction that you provide that helps meet their needs more effectively? Is there anything else that you would like to add about instructing that level of children?
Number one, I think we've already touched on it, so thank you for following up with it, is the integrity of this individual. We know that when humans are developing, when they're young, who am I is based on what their parents think.
Yeah.
Middle school, who am I is based on what my peers think. And in high school, who am I is based on what other adults think. And so it is imperative for me that the high school staff has done a dyslexia simulation or had a dyslexia training, because I think most of them have seen them read and they think it's a cop out, or they think that they're just not putting effort. And so I think the awareness of staff is key one. Two, I guess I'm recapping. Two, I think it's imperative that you are defining what accommodations look like and how they get supported with their integrity in place. You will have teachers, well-intended, call out students, hey, did you need me to give you notes on that? Or did you need your oral accommodation on this? And it's well-intended teachers, right? They're like, oh, this kid's confident. They're okay. People know they have it. That needs to be a conversation where our students feel comfortable about how to have their disability. Third, I know that many of my students have been told they have dyslexia and they think it's a reading disability. I have seen the most progress for young people and adults when they see that their disability encompasses more than just reading and spelling, and that's a language processing disorder. Then teaching them how to use accommodations. I don't know that we've done a great job of that for these students. We told them they can have them, but we haven't taught them how to use them. I had high school students who were like, oh, I hate audiobooks. And I'm like, cool. And then I did part to whole, and we worked with Stamina, and we would do a book where you can just listen to it or you can track. And I taught them how to do audiobooks. And they're like, okay, Dee, it's not painful. And then it got to be, Dee, this is helpful. And it was like, Dee, I love this. We had a book club, for kids with dyslexia, and they could get a honor cord when they graduated because they were in an audiobook club. And I'm like, how cool is that? And what they realized is their intellect wanted to be fed. They actually did want to have the books. Yeah. It's that reading takes more energy. And so we talk about, where do we want to put that energy? Let's do an audiobook for this. Yeah. So I think teaching accommodations was powerful. And a lot of schools are like, who has that time? And I do believe parent nights, Saturday offerings, if you have a company that's willing to offer it in an evening, or you have designated staff that is there to train audiobooks, not make them accessible. And my example for this is physical therapy. You would not, after you broke your shoulder, be given a key to the physical therapy room.
Right.
You are given a physical therapist who's going to take you very incrementally at your pace and ability to grow your strength until you're confident on your own. Right. Students with dyslexia have a language deficit on the left hemisphere, and it's not because you've introduced reading are they cured. And so we need to have an infrastructure of helping them learn how to do accommodations and learn how they learn, embedded with learning how to read. Yeah. I do recommend you having your librarian be a part of that solution, because that's where they have to go to get their research. And yes, things are online now, but your librarian may have access. Many states have subscriptions available where the audiobooks are tailored to students that are bilingual as well as with special needs. And that way it's at the content has less written information, but the content has been preserved. Yeah. I don't know if I said that correctly.
I get it. I totally get it.
Content's preserved, but the reading has been adjusted.
Yeah. I love that you're continuing to bring the librarians into the equation for support of our students, because you're right. A lot of them aren't aware who our dyslexic students are, and they can support them in more ways than I'm aware of, honestly. So I think it's important that we continue to bring them in.
Now a word from our newest sponsor. Established in 1926, the GAL School is the first school in the nation created for students with dyslexia and other language-based learning differences.
Today, GAL is a premier boarding and day school for students in grades 5 through postgraduate.
Located 30 minutes from Buffalo, New York, GAL's campus features 7 dormitories, classrooms, an indoor athletic center, sports fields, theater and art studios, a robotics lab, and more.
To find out more about this nurturing and supportive academic environment, please visit www.gal.org or call 716-652-3450. Let's return to the show. So, my coworker that I have for my business, I was talking to her yesterday. She goes, my husband wants me to stop listening to the podcast. And I go, why? She goes, because I keep spending money on books every time the speaker makes a recommendation. He's like, cut it out. And I go, oh, yeah. So my coworker, don't listen. But what books or websites or articles do you like to recommend to our listening audience? I love the Parts to Whole, the Young Artist series that you had listed. So that's one of the things I'm going to start looking into. But what are some additional resources?
So the first two, you are correct. The Learn to Draw series, although you seem simple, I do have parents take that, your PTA, put it on cardstock and laminate it. Just have a parent volunteer have that available to you. Seven Mighty Moves by Lindsay Kimeny. I'm in love with this book. If you could take the science of reading and say, how do I interpret that in for a student with dyslexia? This is your book. It is fantastic. So I highly recommend that you have that for your listeners and readers. And then The Secret Life of the Dyslexic Child. It's been out for many years. The reason why I recommend that one is for the teachers who are reluctant for students with dyslexia. I think it's powerful for them to see what it's like to live with it. This is a little bit rogue, but I'm going to offer this. I was describing dyslexia. We do know in research that something happens in utero, correct?
Yep.
That's research. We do know that the neurologist that was supporting our original Orton Gillingham training, he is a neurologist and he was working with people with a stroke. Yep. If you look at what people that have suffered a stroke on their left hemisphere, how they're trying to regain interacting with language, retrieval, written or reading, it looks similar to what we do for our students with dyslexia. And I think it's very powerful for people to see that it affects so many areas of our life besides decoding and encoding. Right. And so I was doing this at a training and this woman raised her hand. She said, when I was 27, I had a stroke and I have acquired dyslexia.
Yep.
So I looked it up and I'm like, and there you go. I think it's very powerful for your audience to recognize. We say, oh, dyslexia, they read backwards, right? That's the number one. Or they'll say, oh, they have dyslexia, they have trouble spelling.
Right.
And I don't think that there is the knowledge out there of all that it encompasses. And so there's students that are children with educators that still don't know what it encompasses are not getting what they need. And The Secret Life of the Dyslexic Child gives them some insight to that, as well as a simulation. This one's a little bit off, but I love it, love it, love it. It is Think, Learn, Succeed by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. You're going to say, well, that's not dyslexia. I'll agree with you. But the reason why I recommend it is I think it has a lot to do with my students who are now disengaged and they don't see themselves accurately. And so they're the student that we're not able to touch, not because of ability, but because of the habit to say it's not worth the energy.
Yeah.
This book, Dr. Carolyn Leaf, allows us to have the communication, the dialogue to get our students to want to be back inside of school and to give it another shot. The student I was telling you about with her hair, she said, Mrs. D, tell the story of the day I met you again. I'm like, this is so fun. And so we'll retell the story of the day I met. And she said, I did not want to meet you. And I said, I know. And she said, I didn't think it was going to work. And I said, I know. And she's like, I can't believe I can do it now. And I'm like, I know. The ability and the skill and the orthographic mapping actually was there.
Yeah.
She had a great foundation. What she had never explored is the energy and time and what the disability actually affects.
Yep.
Do you have it? Is it okay if I go over your time?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't even know that you'll use this to hold. Where did I put it? I laminated it because, and you don't even have to have this for your show. This isn't even, I've got it. So this is a girl who was shut down and was quitting school. Parents, I said, I don't tutor. She's out of town. They were like, please, she's not okay. She's going into her junior year. This is now her senior year. We've been together a year and a half. And she had to write a book about herself. And we did it all semester. And then she had to do a dedication. This is her introduction. Isn't it funny how day by day, nothing changes? But when you look back, everything is different. Life is complex. It's like a puzzle. They always change and never fall perfectly into place until you have all the missing pieces. The collection of stories I have written resemble a puzzle. All of them are unique and different, but all discuss the same theme, time. Growing up, I hated reading. I still hate reading, but I like it sometimes. I was always that girl who didn't know how to ask for help. In elementary school, I deeply struggled in every subject, especially math. In Paralyzed, that was one of her articles, I write about my very first experience of feeling ashamed of my disability. I could never write about the experiences I have faced until recently. Dyslexia was my weakness, but learning to overcome it was the toughest phase of my life.
Wow.
Writing about my memories was essential for me. I am someone who takes a lot of mental notes. I always know when to enjoy the moment because later I may never get to feel that feeling again. These bits and pieces of time reflect a journey of inner healing. Because we as humans only live once and we don't get the pleasure of jumping timelines. Each story is a different timeline. In the moments in between, I share a memory from when I found out my best friend was moving states. She was one of the pieces in my puzzle. Last paragraph. Now it will forever be incomplete. I never understood the line between love and loss until I explored my deeper feelings of friendship. Although my friend isn't always with me, I know she will always be there for me. Okay, blah, 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 blah. But someone's life may never be complete without you in it. So be grateful for the time you have in high school because eventually the sun will go down one last time. When it's time to look back, life will look completely different.
Wow.
Incredible.
I cannot emphasize enough the importance of students recognizing the full extent of the disability of dyslexia, that it is more than just a reading disability, so that when they have accuracy over how it's affecting them, they can be engaged in what they need to do so they're successful in navigating life, not just navigating print.
Wow. That's an incredible
I love that, Nancy.
dedication.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing her story too.
Isn't that beautiful? And I don't know that you all need to keep it on there, but it's
Oh, I think we're going to keep it on there.
She completely what happened is when we'd start a project or we'd start a book, she was like, we'll get it done.
Yeah.
Or let's start breaking into part. Let's start doing this. And then all the things that we know as great teachers, teaching structured literacy, orthographic, all the things we know to do. This is what kept her moving forward herself, independent and not codependent.
I love it. So with your experience with Region 10, I was wondering if you could share with us, our audience, who are the required members of an ARD, which some people might see it as ARD, or IEP meetings.
Other states call it other thing.
I was going to say, you will reckon ARD is not a that you hear everywhere else. So it's generally, so your special education meeting or your IEP meeting. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So can you share with our listeners, I've had this question come up as well, who are the required members of the committee?
I want to be cautious because I've been out of Texas 3 years.
Okay.
I'm going to be cautious to say what is in compliance. I will tell you who I recommend to be in there.
Okay.
Because those could be different. For sure, because I believe you can, as long as parents have to have permission, they have to know that the meeting's taking place. And then you have your administrator, whoever's leading it. So you're going to have your counselor. The counselors are another key person. I think a lot of times the counselors are in there to make sure they're getting credits if it's high school or making sure that some of the accommodations are being met. But your counselor needs to be more aware of the secondary consequences. Dyslexia can now become anxiety, depression. So we need our counselors to be more aware of when they're having decline in middle school. The caution there is elementary teachers tend to give more support than middle school. Mm-hmm. Well, the support was working. And so in our tier system, they aren't giving an accommodation the teachers are doing inside the classroom. So now we get to middle school and our disability needs an accommodation. So your counselors are the people that need to be educated on, well, we've seen a change in the students' behavior. We've noticed that they're not as attentive. It may be an academic accommodation when we're making it all about emotion. So the counselors need to be more aware of our disability and how that manifests. So the counselor's key if she's educated. You also want to make sure that we created a letter for the librarian. And so the school district can say, with parent consent, we would like your disability to be made known to the librarian, and you can set aside a time to see the library, tour the library, or have a one-on-one on how the librarian can support you. Have to add that in there.
Yeah.
And the next person is your tech person. You need to make sure there's somebody that is familiar with all the resources a school district has subscriptions to. I will say this is another weak link in many districts. One campus has a subscription, a different campus doesn't, or the whole district has one, but they didn't have the training, but they had the training 3 years ago. Well, we've hired a lot of new teachers. So I do think you need to have a tech person that is familiar with what audio or technology accommodations are available. I have also seen that inside of a parent night where the district will have their different technologies available for parents to have familiarity, or training or who would have access. So technology is very key to be a part of that IEP meeting. Your teachers, the teachers that come into the IEP meeting, I believe need to have samples of a typical student, not your gifted student, but they need an atypical sample along with the student and what accommodation they think will showcase intellect and mastery and not deficit. And I feel like a lot of times our IEP meetings, we go into them and it's kind of like a checklist. Okay, they have the disability. We all agreed. We agree with the menu of dyslexia, oral accommodation, don't check off for spelling, note exchange, and extra time on state assessment.
Yeah.
And they're all like, yeah, we've got it. We know it. We do it. Well, this is the first time that that student's been on this campus. It's the first time that they were at high school. They don't want the teachers to think that they're not successful. So I do believe, again, I know I'm emphasizing it quite a bit, but the awareness of the student of how they need to help their disability and who's going to be accountable for it. And then what does that look like inside of the classroom of that specific teacher? So oral accommodations, my number one, you're going to see it different for every teacher, every grade. So that needs to be in that meeting. I think that's everyone. You've got your counselor, administration, and the student. That's another beautiful thing that we started doing at high school. My freshmen attended the meeting. My sophomores sometimes spoke, but my juniors and seniors spoke for themselves in the meeting. And so that was a powerful change for them because they were like, I didn't even know what an IEP was, or I didn't even know I had accommodations, to I know in my math class I need it this way. Here's an example as well. I had a math teacher that fantastic. And I went to her and I said, I never want to disrespect you. So I want to face to face tell you what is going on from my perspective. You are a loving teacher, passionate teacher, knowledgeable teacher.
Yeah.
But the rate in which you speak and teach is challenging for my students. So for some, it may be better if we switch to Mrs. So-and-so, or for some, maybe we do a note exchange where you already have it printed out for them.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things, the communication with those teachers. And if I'd been there long enough, they knew how to work with my students in general. And I was holding them accountable in a supportive way, not in a make sure. It was more like, hey, how can I help you? This is what happened with the test. Can they come down to my room and we can read it to them next time? So,
yeah. And the dyslexia practitioner, specialist, whoever's on campus supporting the dyslexia.
If whoever's being pulled for their intervention, absolutely. And my apology for not mentioning it, because that is an assumption that I shouldn't assume. They are the teacher that's working most directly with them, have the knowledge of dyslexia, know how to advocate for them, know what their disability needs, and they are required to be the voice inside of that room, period.
Well, this is wonderful. Thank you for
that.
Yeah. And, I just want to clarify one more thing. I know you said that was a recommendation. I totally understand why. If somebody in the country or globally don't have those same standards as we might have in Texas or Oklahoma or other places in the country, where would you recommend they go to figure out who their required members are of their special education committee?
So you have several answers there. That's a great question, by the way. The International Dyslexia Association is where we get most of our information of what is a standard that we could kind of expect. The International Dyslexia Association also has a portion on their website to see if you have a state handbook. If you have a state handbook, possibly you have regulation, or if you're lucky, you have a law. Inside of your dyslexia law, it will tell you what are your legal rights for supporting your student, what the expectation should be on their services. And if there is a child that is identified with dyslexia, then they are to be receiving the services that are directed to that disability. And those organizations are available. I also, Decoding Dyslexia is a parent organization with a very loud, wonderful, powerful voice. And so if you have a chapter in your community, I would reach out to them as a parent. So those resources are available. And then look at your state. Your state might have now, it is more common. I'm going to brag on Arkansas, brag on Oklahoma. They were states that were falling behind in reading and have really started focusing on not only structured literacy and the science of reading, but also how to serve students with dyslexia. So they are implementing handbooks and laws. So if you are curious, go to your state and Google dyslexia, the International Dyslexia Association, and then your Decoding Dyslexia, it's a parent organization, all have great resources immediately for you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy.
That's awesome.
And then my last question.
Her favorite question.
Amy dubbed this as my favorite question. I don't really know if it really
She
is.
asks it every time. It was like common in the first few pods. And then I was like, this is your question. This is your question.
Okay. So if you had one wish that you could grant for our dyslexic students, what would it be and why?
That one's really hard because, that's tearful, because I think the first thing you do is you wish you didn't have it.
Right.
Right. I always say to other people, I wish you had my brain for 1 week and you would see how much time and energy I put into everything that I do.
Yeah.
Not just to meet expectations, but to add value to who I am. So I think that's my first wish. But then my flip side is I believe that every challenge makes you a better, stronger person. So I would never take that away from me or anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's why that's such a hard question, because then I guess my real wish is that for every student that has dyslexia, gives themselves the patience and time and energy to match their intellect, creativity, and purpose in this world. That's my wish, is that it is connected and then they share themselves. That's my wish.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Nancy.
I think that's wonderful.
They deserve that. Yeah. That was a personal question. I can see why it's your favorite one to end on. That's pretty beautiful. You had in my questions of someone that you most admire, and mine is always Maria Montessori. Like if they say you could have an interview with anybody in this world, mine's Maria Montessori, because I think she's the teacher that loved the least, right? She found it intriguing and inviting to work with kids who struggled. So I believe I would enjoy her. But my other one is I have a friend who is paralyzed from the waist down. And I think I have learned more from watching him in my dyslexia, because I think I was paralyzed in my belief of what I could do, because reading is so much around me. And it was meeting him that I was like, I have more ability than I give myself credit for.
Right.
It's that I'm intimidated with language.
Right.
And so watching him like climb a flight of stairs, he's not in a wheelchair, he's climbing a flight of stairs. I'm like, God, the strength and integrity he has in not being afraid. And I was like, that's who I admire right now, because it changed my perspective. And I was like, I've paralyzed myself.
Right.
And that goes with the book, Think, Learn, Succeed. I wasn't accurate in my ability. I wasn't accurate in my creativity or my intelligence. I was focusing on what I couldn't do.
Is there an audio version of the book?
I don't know that to be true, but I'm going to say confidently yes. It's been around. She lectures. I'm confident that it would be on audiobook.
Okay, because I want to listen. I have a lot of driving to do in the next few weeks, so I'm going to download that and listen. And I'm very curious. I think it would be a great one to kind of hand out maybe to some of my parents.
It is on Kindle.
Is it? Mm-hmm. I don't have it.
Atomic Habits is another good book, because it's not a book that you implement, but it's a great book for you to give your students the strategy for implementing the change of habit.
Okay.
And again, when inside of my therapy with my students, we talk about energy, time, habit, and ability. And when I put it in that language, everything is manageable.
Right.
And so that's what Atomic Habits also does, along with Think, Learn, Succeed. It's giving you that scaffolding of language of changing habit.
Nice.
Every time I listen to you, Nancy, I feel like I just learned so much from you. And I also feel like I'm doing so many things that I don't really like.
Oh, no,
I'm going to change up my process.
No. Don't
I don't
do
mean
that.
I don't mean it in a negative way. I want to be more like Nancy.
I know. I get that. No, and I hear you speak, and I think, yes, I could use this with this student, or I could use this here.
Got, Melissa. Look at red my face.
Well, that's my own, how we talk about all the things, all of our shortcomings. One of my shortcomings is really being hard on myself and being introspective and thinking about all the things that I don't do the way I want to do them, or that I could do better, and just constantly trying to improve. But with age, the improvements don't come as easily.
Well, with age, you just kind of sometimes don't care.
But you know what, guys? My inner circle of friends are all the people who are always wanting to improve. And I do believe that if you're in our field, what do we do all day long? We set a goal, name the strategies, and measure it. So I feel like that's who I am as a human being now, is I'm like always like, okay, if I want to lose weight at the beginning of the year, what is my goal? What are my strategies? So I love that I am constantly improving, but I also believe life has grace. And so both of you, you're phenomenal teachers. And what I love every time I train, I always have somebody come up to me and say, have you ever read or have you ever done? And I get better every time I meet people. And I'm better with every student I meet because I'm like, never seen this before. What am I going to do?
Right.
So I don't know. I get teary and I brag all the time. I know that there's a lot less people choosing our field. I think more and more young people are going to have our nature go into nursing.
Yeah.
It's understandable with the environments on some campuses, but I grieve it because I find our field to be one of the most rewarding. I absolutely love what we do.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
watch that light bulb. I mean, I went to a conference and they said, what is your favorite sound? And I'm like, maybe rain. No, it's a waterfall. It's a kid learning to read.
Yeah.
That's my favorite sound. I love it when they finally connect. And so I'm like, God, and those are the people I'm surround myself with. So don't you find us I love our profession, the people we are, and caring and loving and striving.
Yes.
I think I have two avenues of favorite sounds. Having a kid. Okay, so like I was working with students this morning on a Sunday, and he was spelling, do what you can, right? We were working on derivative rules, and he was doing doubling and dropping and adding and changing, like boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, yes, I'm loving that. And then if I'm at home, my favorite sound is to hear the dishwasher and the washing machine going simultaneously.
I will forever think of you.
Because something else is working but me.
That's awesome. Melissa, what's your favorite sound?
Okay, well, it's not directly the kid, but when parents will tell me, oh my gosh, they're reading everything everywhere. They're reading the signs on the side of the road. I've never heard them do that. So the sound is their parents telling me what the kid is doing outside of the classroom, outside of their time with me. And that just fills me up because now they're seeing the world.
Yes.
The way we see the world.
You've changed their trajectory by them choosing it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just building skill. It's them desiring to be inside of books. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Every time I read, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I was identified at 43.
Wow.
And it absolutely changed. It changed me completely. Grateful.
I can imagine that weight was lifted off of you to get that identification.
I used to say I'm smart enough to know I'm stupid. At least I know I'm not bright. I said that over myself, high school through adulthood. And when I was identified, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm smart. I didn't know. But I have dyslexia.
Yeah. But look at all of what you can do, like everything you are able to accomplish and continuously improve upon. You are a light for our world, for the dyslexia population, for the general population in the world. You're touching all of these different people, which will essentially touch other people that we don't know, and how that will change our world. It's just fascinating.
It is. Thank you so much for doing this today on a Sunday. I always say on a Sunday, on a weekend, on your time off. Thank you so much for coming doing this, turning on your Zoom and reserving this time and doing this with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, when you're lucky enough, your passion is also your career. This is not work. So
it's just fun.
Joy to be with both of you any day of the week or time. So
just playing with your friends.
Yeah. It's so good to be back with friends.
Oh, thank you. So this is Amy.
And Melissa.
And we're the Dyslexia Duo. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
The Dyslexia Duo podcast hosts are Amy Rodenroth.
Melissa Dean.
Our producer is Greg Rodenroth.
You can find us on Facebook at The Dyslexia Duo.
Email us any questions or comments at thedyslexiaduo@gmail.com.
Awareness is so important. Share this podcast with your friends,
Family,
and teachers.
thanks for joining us.
Bye.